Singapore Polytechnic Students' Union deplores vehemently the proposed British sale of arms to apartheid South Africa. These were the words painted across a huge banner that Singapore Polytechnic students hung up in school in solidarity with the struggle against institutionalized racial segregation halfway across the world, protesting against the arms trade that directly contributed to this violence. This was in 1971, just 55 years ago. In 1974, President of the University of Singapore Students' Union, Juliet Chin, alongside 70 students, went to Johor Bahru to protest against the government's eviction of 68 poor squatter families and the demolition of their homes there in Tasik Utara. Whether it is a struggle just across the causeway or 8,700 kilometers away, the students of Singapore have historically stood on the side of principle and justice, embodying the spirit of regionalism, putting our bodies on the front lines in solidarity with fellow workers, students, homemakers, the masses, the people of Southeast Asia. And we do so against the imperial capitalist plunder facilitated by our government. Now, 50 years on, students across the world continue the fight against imperialism, especially the devastation wreaked by the US war machine. From the hundreds of solidarity encampments across the world to the 100 Shoe Memorial in Singapore honoring child martyrs of war and genocide, we remain steadfast in this shared struggle and our resounding call to end US terrorism. In Southeast Asia alone, the US has intervened in Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and the Philippines through bomb attacks, sabotage, and forced regime changes. The Singapore government is not innocent in the plunder of the people and resources in our region either. The land that we stand on and the buildings that we live and work in have been built on stolen land, on the backs and broken families of low-paid migrant workers in Singapore. Singapore is the world's largest sand importer. The world's largest sand importer. We have mined tons and tons of sand from Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Vietnam, which have reported the depletion of marine life, landslides, and river erosion as a result of our actions. Singapore sand mining has led to the disappearance of at least 24 Indonesian islands. This is land theft, but called land reclamation. And if you think about it, it's even more irreversible than colonizing another people's land. We literally erase them from the map. This sand we import has been used to expand Singapore's territory, but this territory is not created out of thin air. It comes from elsewhere and affects families, communities, and people whose homes have become inhabitable, whose sustenance and resources have been depleted, forcing them into low-paid labor in countries like Singapore, where they face heightened exploitation and dangerous workplace conditions. Our own indigenous communities have not been spared either. Marshlands and swamps, which were fertile ground for orang laut to fish for mud skippers, were stolen from the indigenous people of this land we call Singapore. Development in Singapore has meant ruin for fisher folks' livelihoods. How ironic it is that the erasure of indigenous ways of life and the natural resources of Southeast Asia have been branded as part of a nationhood project to turn Singapore from third world to first, to build a global trade hub that serves US imperialist capitalist interests, with the USA being the largest foreign investor in Singapore. What about our local small businesses? What about our people, traditions, culture, and independence? What about the debt we owe to this region, Southeast Asia, where every country remains much poorer than Singapore? Poverty we entrench when we import cheap labor and natural resources from their lands. And do you know where else in the world land is being taken from the people, homes are being bulldozed, and communities have been displaced en masse for decades? Imperialism looks the same no matter which part of the world it's happening in. Singapore claims to be vulnerable and exceptional. We grew up with state narratives about how Singapore lacks natural resources. Singapore is a small country surrounded by Muslim majority countries. We can't trust our neighbors, blah blah blah. But is this true? Is this true? Singapore is the wealthiest country in Southeast Asia. Where is all this wealth coming from? It comes from exploiting poorer countries in the region. 1 million workers who build Singapore's economy every day are Malaysian. We belong to the Nusantara. Why should we not stand as one people in this region? Why should we be taught to fear our neighbors? Our state abuses the claim that we are vulnerable to justify the heaps of money channeled towards military and policing spending. The 2026 defense budget is 24.93 billion Singapore dollars. In other words, this taxpayer money spent on weapons and the war industry, 24.93 billion of our taxpayer money. That is the cost of about 60,000 five-room BTOs. That amount can put 800,000 Singaporeans through university. These billions could have funded at least 1,246,000,000 and 500,000 polyclinic visits. It could feed all 1.11, sorry, I have too many numbers, I'm struggling to read. It could feed 6.11 million of us 2 plates of chicken rice a day for a whole year, and we will still have more than $2.6 billion left over. You know, these numbers are so unimaginable that I had to look up how many zeros there were in a billion. It's 9 zeros, by the way. And instead of spending these billions on the bread and butter needs of the people, for housing, for education, for healthcare, for food, the Singapore government chooses to channel these funds towards growing the war machine.
Disgusting!
Singapore is the third largest Asian investor in the US. Less than 3 months ago, Singapore purchased almost $3 billion worth of military hardware from the US to increase interoperability with US and allied forces. Hey, I thought Singapore against foreign interference. The Singapore government recently banned US PhD graduate Dr. Fadia from re-entering Singapore. Allegedly for a tweet encouraging people to join a political rally. But when it comes to warmongers who are responsible for wars, genocide, and occupation, foreign interference suddenly okay. How can our government justify sending thousands of our young men to train with the world's biggest terrorists who attack, extract from, and exploit our neighbors? And I know what some of you might be thinking. Wow, 50 years on, we are still reiterating the same demands. We are still fighting against the same enemy that doesn't seem to budge, but instead seems to have increasing brute force, with heightened military and policing technology and investments. With detentions, raids, deportations, termination from work, schools calling the cops on students, etc. Some of us here at Hong Lim Park today have borne the brunt of it too. There's so much sacrifice from the people, but there also continues to be so much depoliticization amongst the people. What is the practical basis to keep the fight going? Quite simply, the evidence says it works. On top of the student actions in Singapore in the 70s and over the last few years, millions have participated in solidarity efforts across the world too. Last year, dock workers in France blocked a shipment that carried machine gun parts, refusing to be complicit in war crimes. We travel a bit further, let's go to Italy. 500,000 people went on a 24-hour general strike, skipping work and school under the slogan Blocchiamo tutto, meaning let's block everything. They demanded an end to their state's complicity in genocide, and they successfully disrupted weapons shipment towards genocide and are set to coordinate further disruptions with other unions across the world. And we, the people, have done all this despite the billion-dollar propaganda machine on top of the increasing surveillance, policing, and violence of governments across the world. Imagine what more we can do if more of us got organized and resisted. Singapore, our turn to forge stronger regional, international solidarity with the working class masses is long overdue. We owe it to our predecessors, our neighbors, our children, and ourselves to fight for a future that's free from violence, where we are free from the moral injury of stealing the homes, livelihoods, and lives from the people and nature in this region and halfway across the world. Honestly, I cannot promise that any war will end anytime soon. Struggle takes time, but struggle we must.